afraid of the dark.
I am an 18-year-old guy, a student, living separately from my parents. This summer I had an experience that still sends shivers down my spine when I think about it. In mid-July, as the street grew dark and the evening cool replaced the day's heat, I was chatting with my friend on social media, browsing various YouTube videos. Next to me were freshly made sandwiches, and on the screen was my favorite blogger's channel. The only thing missing was a warm cup of tea, but that was easily fixable. I messaged my friend that I'd be away for a few minutes and headed to the kitchen to put the kettle on. Gazing out the window, I noticed it was dark and cool outside, with no one around. A few minutes later, the kettle boiled, and I brewed some tea, adding a few sugar cubes. I left the tea to cool on the windowsill as I didn't want to return to the stuffy room. I decided to wait, enjoying the view of the deserted streets of Moscow. About 5 minutes passed, and a strange tall man appeared below. He was bald, wearing a white shirt splattered with red paint on the collar, with a huge, apparently old belt and wide pants. The man walked slowly, whistling some strange melody. Then he stopped and stared at the window on the first floor. I lived on the second floor, and I felt a little scared. This man was too strange. Why would a normal person look into someone else's windows in the middle of the night? I didn't want to watch him for long, so I grabbed my still warm tea and hurried back to my room. There were already more than 20 unread messages from my friend in the messenger. I quickly told him about the strange man, but of course he didn't believe me, asking me to take a picture of the guy. I refused, saying that he had already left, although I just didn't want to see him again. We quickly changed the subject, discussing other news. The clock showed 1:42 in the morning, but I didn't feel like leaving the internet, just like my friend, who had just written that he was going to take a shower and then go to bed, as he had to get up early tomorrow to inquire about work. Of course, it was boring to be alone, but since I didn't feel like sleeping at all, I decided to watch YouTube videos again. I hadn't finished watching one blogger's video when I received a message from my friend. "Dude, you won't believe this video I just saw." Long story short, I turned on the water in the bath, and while it was filling up, I decided to sit in the kitchen because it was hot. I opened the window, I stared at the street, and suddenly saw a man. Seemed like an ordinary guy, but there was something strange about him. I don't even know what. He's walking, humming some song. Then he stopped near my house, looking at the windows on the first floor. He looked for about 5 minutes, then looked up to the second floor. Well, I thought, maybe he's waiting for some friend, okay. And then he looked straight into my windows, right at me. I immediately stopped drinking, and a terrifying grin appeared on his face. A grin that gave me the creeps, I swear. I almost left the house, and the floor hadn't even creaked yet. And then he yelled in an inhuman voice, like, his face exploded. It changed, as if ink had been poured over it, although maybe I imagined it, but __. He screamed like that, and felt something wet under his feet, and the bath started overflowing. I went to turn off the water, then went to the kitchen, and he was gone. Maybe I imagined it all. Oh wait, I'm telling you about it, and you don't believe me, __, you should drink less, you won't see such things. Although this person seemed strange to me, I decided to look at the situation realistically. Perhaps the guy was drunk, and that's why he was looking into other people's windows. Maybe he was looking for someone to take him in. I continued the conversation with my friend, who suggested, "Hold on, someone's knocking at the door. Strange. Who could it be at this time?" "Okay, I'll go open it. Then I'll text you back." I continued watching videos, so I didn't notice that 40 minutes had passed since the last message. However, I wasn't too concerned about it. Probably just the neighbors who went to his place. I didn't even think about anything bad. A couple of hours later, I went to bed as I had classes at the university the next day. The next day passed fairly quickly. I wanted to visit my friend who lived opposite my house, but then remembered that he had gone about work, so he probably wasn't home. I didn't call to avoid bothering him unnecessarily. In the evening, he still hadn't appeared on social media, although he should have been back no later than 5 o'clock. I started to worry, but calmed myself down by thinking that maybe he was delayed with his girlfriend or for some other reason. It was already 11:53 p.m. I went to the kitchen because I was thirsty. I poured myself some water from the pitcher and started drinking, looking out the window. And suddenly that strange man appeared on the street again, in the same clothes, humming the same song, with the same odd manners and a piercing gaze at the first floor. I was shaken. But what happened next was even scarier. He looked straight at me, into my eyes. A malicious grin appeared on his face, and I almost choked on the water. The man opened his mouth incredibly wide and screamed, wildly, loudly, and angrily. My God, I've never heard anything more horrible. At that moment, it seemed to me that his face darkened, turned into a black spot, and his skin sagged, almost to his shoulders. I dropped the glass and rushed to my room. I was shaking for about 15 minutes after what happened. I couldn't come to my senses. I was already about to go to bed when suddenly there was a knock on the door. Loud, with such force, as if someone wanted to break it down. I sat in shock, afraid to move. The knocking continued for about half an hour, and then everything went quiet. I blacked out and woke up only at 1 o'clock the next day, remembering nothing. Maybe it was for the best. Several days later, the memories gradually faded from my mind, and I blamed it all on my imagination and being too exhausted. I thought so until I found out about my friend's death. He was hanged in the kitchen, right in front of the window. His head was neatly shaved bald, as if by a good hairdresser. There were drops of blood from his slit throat on the collar of the shirt he was going to wear for work. His mother, with whom we had a fairly good relationship, reported his death. As soon as I learned about what happened, I understood who was to blame for it. Whether this person was a maniac or some otherworldly force in the guise of a human, I don't know. But since then, I never look out the window at night and always close the curtains.